Hey, everybody, welcome back. Another quick turnaround, and we are on to session 3. I'd like to welcome you guys back. I'm Brett Norton with Beyond Clean, and I would like to extend a sincere thank you to our event sponsor, Census Technology, and our event collaborator, First Case, for providing the nursing credits for this conference. Also wanted to highlight a new function on this platform. There are some new icons, some emoji icons, so you can share your reactions to the information presented throughout the conference today by selecting your favorite emoji, smiley face icon, or thumbs up. You can also share this great day of education with your friends and coworkers directly to your favorite social media platform by selecting the share icon. So please go ahead and do that if you feel, and I hope you do, that this content throughout the conference is relevant, because we've had some really great discussions and great presentations so far. What is available in the resource window? We've got some sponsor provided brochures, so please feel free to pull those up and download. And we'd love for you to follow Beyond Clean on LinkedIn so you can stay up to date on the latest Beyond Clean content and educational events. Our two speakers today are Jeffrey Long. Jeffrey is a sterile processing network director for the St. Luke's University Health Network. He enjoys helping people who want a rewarding career have the opportunity to become part of the growing sterile processing profession. Once again, we've got Seamus Johnson. He is the senior software developer at Census Technologies, and he and his team work closely with customers to identify and solve the most important problems faced in sterile processing today. The presentation title is Knowing Your Numbers: How to Become a Data-Driven SPD. Are you ready to discover the data matrix vital to your department's efficiency? Then you have come to the right session. Jeff is going to demonstrate how to effectively interpret your department's monthly reports to help your department become a data-driven force to be reckoned with. Get ready to discover how data can improve workflows, drive efficiency, and create proactive leaders as opposed to reactive ones. Join us to discuss these topics and more as we go beyond the numbers in SPD. Welcome, Jeff and Seamus.
All right. Thank you, Brett. I'm super excited to be here with Jeff Long today. Jeff has done a lot to help me learn more about sterile processing and about data. So I'm super excited to be here and having this conversation with Jeff. So Jeff, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello everyone. I've been in the field a little over 30 years, maybe 33. Started off in the Air Force in 1986 as a flight medic, and retired in 2007 as a reservist. Since then, I've been working in Philadelphia, mostly at some of the major hospitals there, University of Pennsylvania, Thomas Jefferson. Worked with IMS Sterile for about 9 years as a consultant and interim management, project planning and stuff like that. Most recently, I worked at in New York City, where I really became intrigued with lean processes and metrics and things like that, and sort of lit up a fire inside of me for those kinds of things. And just to go back just a little bit, I guess my love for this unknowingly started back in the Air Force when I first went into TQM. They called it TQM back then, and total quality management, and then quality management, those types of things. And over the years, it's evolved, and then lean management. And then my love for the metrics came from the fact that I needed information but couldn't find it, and so over time, here we are now, 30 years later, and with technology advances and things like that, I finally have a tool that I can use. So that's my journey, and it's a little bit all over the place, but I think that's what makes individuals who they are. A little bit from here, a little bit from there. I call it experience, and always looking forward to the future for ways of developing and growth. And that's what's brought me to here to this platform today. That's my
Yeah.
story.
Awesome. Thanks. So today at St. Luke's, you oversee what, 12 departments there?
Yes, maybe, and actually, it's going to be more. One department is broken up into two, so I know sometimes I say 13. We're, gosh, it seems like we're doubling our size and capacity all the time. We have at least 3 or 4 projects open, including building a new hospital with 8 additional ORs. So, today it's 12, tomorrow could be 13, tomorrow the next month it'll be 14. So, and the growth is a good problem, though.
And then geographically, how far spread out are those different facilities?
Yeah, so I was just talking to Jamie Hinkle yesterday, and she was on one of the panels before this one, and she was telling me that St. Luke's old slogan was uh, something like big city care, but in a small town environment kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do have some facilities in Allentown, Bethlehem, which is more of a big city type of atmosphere, but we also have many facilities that outreach type areas and rural areas. So to go from one end of our region is about 90 miles, and you wouldn't think it would be that far, being that we're in Pennsylvania. You might think that might be out in the Midwest, in the plains or something like that, but it's about 90 miles to go. Stand corrected. It's 90 miles to go round trip. So it's about 45, 50 miles each way.
Wow.
So from one facility to the other.
So from your perspective, it's not really practical to try and visit all of those sites every day, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely. In my position, I have about 6 presidents to answer to, 6 OR directors, those types of things. And I remember when I came to census last spring, and you, Seamus, and I had always preached about, as a manager or director, I need to be like an air traffic controller, whether it's one facility or many facilities. And in the early days of AI Square, we were talking about, like, how can I be that air traffic controller, sitting in one chair and one desk. I have three monitors on my desk now, thanks to the AI Square. But that was my problem. I had 12 facilities, and I'm like, well, how do I manage all these? I've been in other facilities where I remember talking to Cody down in Nashville, and he and I have the same amount of people, but he had staff. And he said I have all my staff in one location, Jeff, but you have yours all over that geographical area. He goes, like, how do you do it? And I said, well, I do it much better now because I have that air traffic control type of view now, where I'm 10,000 feet up, and I can see what's going on at all my sites. So it was very difficult, and we were on the emails a lot, which is ineffective, telephones, stuff like that. But it all comes down to having that view and good communication, and I'll get into the communication piece a little bit more too as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks. So looking back over your career, when you were in New York, you were involved, I believe, in an initiative. Like you said, you got into lean, but you were involved in an initiative using that to improve quality, productivity, and quality. Mm-hmm. What was that initiative, and how did that work?
Well, we ended up building a brand new hospital, 73 operating rooms. And so we moved from one building to another. And, anytime you're making a big move like that, it's going to upset the apple cart, so to speak,
Yeah.
So all new processes, what you did yesterday is completely different now. We prepared for months and months and months for opening day. And, we did a pretty good job based upon, our skills and knowledge that we had at the time. But it was the processes were different. It was completely a different look. Operating rooms on multiple floors now. So it was a difficult situation and environment to be in. So what we needed to nail down our processes and change and adapt. So, Seamus, can you repeat that question though? I have a thought, but I have many thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, you were opening a new facility, and I think what happened there, you were telling me about this some time ago, is that you guys realized that you needed to improve both productivity and quality there. Yeah. So talk a little bit about like how did that come about, and then what did you do?
Yeah, so I remember. Thanks for reeling me in there. I really appreciate it. I have so many thoughts. I think faster than I speak sometimes. So what happened was we were having so many issues with getting trays and equipment, case carts, to where they needed to be because we were, like I said, we were on multiple floors now, and so we very quickly realized that there were issues that we needed to address. One of the issues is we needed data. What exactly were the problems? And so we had a multidisciplinary team. That's where Lean came in and helped us out, this Lean group. And what they did was they identified where the problems were. Well, they came back with a number of like almost 15% error rate, defect rate. And we were like, oh my gosh, that's unheard of. That's crazy. And so they explained to us, well, look, your new environment, whole new processes, it's going to get uglier before it's going to get better. And that was one message that we had to convey to our customers, which is the operating room. Obviously the patients are our customers, but our number one customer as SPD is the operating room. And we had to work with them, and they understood because they were going through the same issue. Unfortunately, the patients should not know that, or they don't want to know that. All they know is they want their surgery, and they want to go home as soon as possible, pain-free, no infections. And that's our job to give them that service. So when we came back with those baseline data of 15% defect rate, that might have meant the case wasn't available, the tray was not available for the first case or second case cart was lost, that kind of thing. We also noticed that missing instruments was becoming a problem now. And, missing instruments is one of those categories. It's kind of like a trash can type of analogy to or description of a grade. What exactly does missing instruments mean? And unfortunately, it's one of those categories I'm not really fond of because missing instruments means it's lost, or we can't find it. And that's not always the case. We may have instruments that are being replaced or that kind of thing. Or they may have broken on the last case, but now they're on order, that kind of thing. So those were the big things we had to look at, and we had to find out what was important to our customer. And so we didn't have that data. We had to develop it. And maybe I'm transitioning into the next part of your question, but we had to develop it with Excel data. And it was very, very time consuming. It took staff away to collect the data, staff away from being productive, fixing the problems, to collect the data and then turn it into useful information so that we could analyze it, assess it, and then create action plans. So we were already in a tough situation. Now we're in a tougher situation because we had to kind of like do a timeout and say, let's find out what's wrong, and then let's develop solutions. Then you have to implement it. That's the tough part. Now, you're kind of like not getting as much traction as you want because now you have to implement a new process. So I know I said a real lot there, but it's almost like a nightmare scenario where you're taken out of your comfort zone and put into a new zone, and you have to open your eyes, open your ears, and then say, where am I? Okay, what's next? So that was a tough situation. But we managed it.
So if I understand correctly, you guys open a new facility, and then the OR, the nurses are saying, well, we're not getting what we're needing. We're having this problem. We're having this problem. We're having this problem. Everybody's hair's on fire. But you knew, okay, I've got all these people saying, I think this and I think this, but we got to get some data first and get things out on paper so we can understand what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. The perception from the operating room is SPD is on fire. The ship is going down, that kind of thing. And sometimes we hear that in our daily lives, every day, with departments that haven't gone through that kind of stressful change. We live it all the time. I always say that SPD is only as good as the last mistake could ruin all the good that you've done previous to that one mistake.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, folks have short-term memories. They don't remember what it was like 6 months ago or a year ago, that type of thing. And they're only as good as your last good day. The one that, like I said, that one critical mistake could just erase everything. So that's one thing I liked about data is, you can see on the chart. I don't know if everyone can see it, but when you have trend lines and things like that, you have baseline data. You can say, well, time out. Let's look back at our history here. This is where we started. This is where we are today.
Right.
If I could just jump to an example real quick, here today at St. Luke's at Health Network in Bethlehem and everything, at our sites, our average defect rate is about 0.29. Our goal, which was which is 0.5, 0.5%. We thought a year ago when we established that we were setting ourselves up for failure by being a little too aggressive with that goal, because the year before we were like wavering between 0.75, 0.1 for a defect rate. So we said, well, we're gonna shoot for the stars here. We're gonna go 0.5 or less. When I first got here, we figured it was about 1.14, somewhere around there. Our defect rate. And so we got it down to 0.75 real quick, and now we're down to about 0.5. And but when I say that to our customers, they're like, "Well, all I know is, the sky's falling. Things are on fire in SPD." And I'm like, "Well, you have to look at the history. It's like the stocks. They go up and down.
Yeah.
This is where we are. This is where we were 2 years ago. This is where we are today. Great improvement." And what we're asking for is patience. We're constantly growing, developing, we're improving, and we have to celebrate a lot of times too that improvement. And our job as SPD professionals is, okay, we're making strides in our field. We're becoming professionals. We're becoming highly technical. The OR teams and SPD are working together almost as one department in a lot of sites I've heard of, and even with our institution here, we're basically one team. We understand that one can't live without the other, and we've been able to do that with metrics and data and show just how important one and the other is. We're not, we can't say the operating room is more important than us because they bring in the revenue. We have equal ground foundation here. We see each other. So that's my story, and I'll stick to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things that you always tell me is quality is number one, right? And what we're looking at on the screen here is an example of how this is actually your data. You can look at quality. So going back to New York, you started collecting data about defects. Here's what the nurses are actually seeing, getting that down on paper.
Right.
Today, like you said, you look at trends over time of defect rates. So first, I guess I got a couple of questions here. Number one, how much of this do you share with the operating room? How much of this data? I know you touched on it. You need to have those data-driven conversations and not react to perception all the time. How much do you share? What do you share? What's useful?
Well, that's a good question, because the very first question you have to ask yourself is, and your customer, which is the operating room, or it could even be cath lab, they're all customers. You have to find out what's important to them. What I found out was important was we don't want bioburden contaminated soil instruments, right? That's a no-go. We don't want a delayed case. That's we have to look at the cost of a OR minute, which is hovering around. Depends where you are. Believe it or not, here in Pennsylvania, it's about $65 a minute for an OR minute. I've been in places like New York where it's actually in hundreds of dollars for a minute in the operating room. So delay patient harm. that's a no-no, never event, patient harm, patient exposure to that bioburden. You might have it. So, we're talking about contaminated cases. We're talking about patient harm, which means exposing the patient to bioburden. Those are no-goes. A delayed case where the patient's under anesthesia. You never want those types of things. So that's a given. And that should be at every operating room, and that should be agreed upon between every OR and every SPD. Those are showstoppers. But you have to find out too. Some folks, when I meet with many VORs on a weekly basis, and the missing entrance really annoys them. And then it's the holes in the trays. And SPD is like, well, we're not buying the hole. That's not our mistake. When I sent that tray up to you, it had no holes in it because we used the blue transport trays. And so you have to come to an agreement with the operating room. And a lot of it is education too as well. What I tell my operating rooms is, well, according to the manufacturer of the wrapper, and from the in-services I've had from manufacturers, is there really should be four touches on a wrap tray. The touches from the sterilizer to the shelf, to the case cart, to the operating room, the tray gets used. How many times did it go back and forth to the operating room? I've seen trays go back and forth to the operating room 40, 50 times before it's used. And of course it's going to get a hole. We have a good relationship with our OR that if we see them tossing trays, we can say something to the operating room, and they take it very seriously. So, and where does all that come from? You have to be able to communicate, have a good conversation with your customer, but you have to have the proof or the evidence, the data. Nurses, you have to understand your nurses, your customer. Nurses work on evidence. Everything with them is evidence-based, and they'll tell you. We don't do doctors. We don't do anything unless it's evidence-based. Well, you got to show them the data, and you can't do that unless you have the data. So the other thing I like to point out too, and I'm looking at the bar graph chart there, is you have to, as a problem solver and working with your customer, you have to say, okay, I can only do so much, but I want to focus on the most important aspects, the most important defects, mistakes, so on and so forth, quality. What are those? What are those top issues? Well, a lot of folks they don't really know. It could be holes in trays where you might have 20 holes per day or something like that, depending if you're high in orthopedic, spine, and neuro. Or it could be bioburden. We don't want bioburden as being a number one defect. We want it to be the least common defect. So if we look at our top three or four issues, we have to assess those, problem solve, and say, well, how can we fix these? Because we need to get that low-hanging fruit, right?
Yep.
And then we have to look at the issues and say, well, this is a long-term issue. The missing instruments, maybe, possibly. And then I was actually looking through my statistics today when we were doing the facility comparison, and I was looking at my one site where they have a ton of instruments on their trays, and then their tray production per technician is at the bottom of all my sites.
Right.
And I was just there this week, problem solving, observing, and I told the staff, look, I'm here to observe. Don't expect me to build trays or anything like that. I was honest with them. I said, there's issues here, and I need to find out what they are. And then I did keep focus on a couple things. But when I was looking at the statistics today, I said, well, gosh, there we are. Their trays are overfilled, too many instruments, and that's probably one of the reasons why they have each technician is producing less trays per other technicians at other sites. So you really need to know what you're looking for. The only way you're going to do what you need. I mean, all these charts are great. What am I going to do with them? Why are they there? You can sit here all day and just stare at charts, but you have to know your customer, know what your customer wants. You have to know your top 3 or 4 problems. You have to be in tune with what's going on. My situation, it's difficult to do that unless I can say I am truly an air traffic controller. I can see where all my airplanes are in the sky, and then I can be that traffic cop kind of person, and that's the situation that I'm in. It's a unique dynamic, and you have to learn to adapt. And then
Yeah.
my charts have been able to help me with that. That's why I have 3 screens on my desk right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point too. The industry's changed. We've got more data at our fingertips today than we did 30 years ago.
Right.
How have you personally managed to become the data fluent person that you need to be over the course of your career? Start thinking about where you started and where you are today.
Yep.
Yeah, what has helped you along that path?
Well, seeing the value of it, the way the communication. I talked earlier about the phone and emails, and that's so impersonal. How much do you really get done? I have an issue with my managers sometimes. I have 5 managers that work for me and 26 coordinators, which are equivalent to supervisors. And every morning I get a huddle with those folks at 8:30. Every morning we do a 15-minute Teams call. If they can't be on the Teams call, they send me a report very quickly. There's a few minimum things that I must have. I must know the WIP, work in progress, the number of trays down. I must know if their equipment is fully functional, and I must have a staffing report. And then of course, if there's any major issues, I need to know those as well. So that's mandatory every day. The other problem I have from my managers is they're entrenched, right? They're not just work. They're just not managers. They have 3 sites. They're actually regional managers, so they have at least 3 sites each one. And my one manager who is working at Bethlehem, she actually has additional responsibility. She managed the float program. We have floating technicians as well. So what I explain to them is, emails, they can't get to their emails. I'm like, why didn't you accept my meeting invite? Well, I don't have the time to go through all my emails. I get it. I get 300 or 400 emails a day. And I'm sure a lot of folks on this meeting get a lot of emails too. So you can get into what we all call email jail. A lot of people realize this when they go to a vacation and they come back and they've got 1,000 emails. Unfortunately, you're not going to get to all this, right? So that's lost communication. So what we need information that really counts. We've all learned we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? You have to be a better listener than a speaker. Everything, whether it's emails, phone calls, Teams meetings, data, you have to know what to filter out and how to prioritize. And unfortunately, you're not going to get to all that data. And that's why I was saying you have to find out the top 3 or 4 issues. You have to have data and communication that has impact. And, your customers have to understand that, you're here to help them, to help your department, of course, be successful. But, when you have communication, it has to be effective. And so you're not going to be able to solve all the world's problems or your problems in one. Yeah. So I guess that's the point I'm getting at. And you have to be on the same page as your customers and stuff like that. So you're constantly reprioritizing. So my top 3 things for the day may still end up being my top 3 priorities for the day, and I might move them to tomorrow. And don't look at yourself as a failure. What you have to constantly do is, it's almost like survival techniques, right? Sometimes I feel like I'm a failure because I didn't get everything done that I wanted to do on my agenda today. Yeah. But as a manager, we're all managers, right? We're all leaders. You're constantly reassessing. Sometimes you're delegating. Right. And then what I've been doing is I've been trying to delegate some of the work with these charts and stuff to my managers. And I have a quality coordinator, and I have an educator, and I have my instrument tracking system gatekeeper, which is our resource coordinator. So I've delegated a lot of responsibilities to those folks, and even to my regional managers and my 26 coordinators. So we have to make sure that what we delegate, gets done, right? So the other part of the delegation part is not only is it completed, but you have to inspect what we expect, right? We've heard that, some a lot of times. I have to have faith and trust in my leadership team that they've completed the task that I have given them. So we have a lot of tools in place. My quality coordinator, he has to enter in the data into the instrument tracking system. And we have patient safety reports, which get entered into here as well. And there's nothing more embarrassing than having incorrect data in the system. And then second most embarrassing is data you can't explain.
Right.
But you always have to have a card in your pocket to work your way out of that one as well, because if the data's there, it's explainable, but you have to have your support network. I mentioned to you, I have my 5 regional managers, 26 coordinators. I have my quality, compliance, and safety coordinator, my educator, and my resource specialist. I don't go into these meetings and alone. It's a team effort, and my folks, when they go into these meetings with me, I don't run the meetings. They run the meetings, and I'm there as a support person, and we work together. And if I need to jump in and then explain different things, then I do that. But we have to go in there with a plan together and explain the data. And what our goal is to show that we're not perfect, but this is what we're working on. This is where we are today. This is where we came from. This is where we are today. This is where we're going. And we have solutions, and we have a plan, action items, those kind of things. And then what we really want to do too is make sure we focus on and acknowledge our success. And I think that really goes a long, long way. So, and then we have to get feedback from our customer. Feedback is critical because in whatever direction we're going in, our customer is steering us, but we're helping them. Where you hear talking points all the time on the news, where you're setting the talking points, or you're driving the agenda kind of thing. Yeah. Well, we want to reel our customer in sometimes and focus on the data, focus on the facts, and we want to stay focused on that. So it's a lot of times we have folks that derail the system. Maybe they have their own personal agenda or something like that.
Yeah.
And you have derailers, and I have to admit, our culture here at St. Luke's University Health Network is an amazing one. We don't allow any kind of derailing here. It's a culture of working together and for a common good. And we have our PCRAFT, it's an acronym. We have our PCRAFT values, and we focus on those, professionalism, respect, the teamwork, those kinds of things. And we constantly strive to work together as a team. And we don't want to hear that negative stuff. We want to hear what the problems are. Let's be transparent. Let's move forward and work on solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you're absolutely right. Data is what allows us to do that, right? Understanding the facts. What is reality? So one of the ways data can be used is to help you improve your workflow. These are some examples of the kinds of data you can get out of a tracking system. So at St. Luke's, when you first arrived at St. Luke's, I understand St. Luke's was data-driven about how they figured out how many people should be working in each department. What was the process when you arrived? What was the data that they used for that?
We used a Premier platform where we have data metrics, and we look at units of service. And that's how we measure for SPD here. Some folks look at the number of OR cases and stuff like that. But here we use units of service. And we do that because there's a lot of things SPD does. We feel we have the ability to decide whether we want to use units of service or OR cases. But we have a lot of additional duties here to do in our department. We have other departments to support and things like that. There's a trend now to take sterilization out of doctors' offices. And I had a nice long meeting yesterday with a dermatology clinic that's doing 100 procedures a day. So we have dermatology kits, Mohs, and things like that. that we're bringing in, and that's all units of service that we wouldn't capture if we were working on the OR case premise. So to make a long story short, we have our internal metrics where we look at units of service, and we have very, very smart people that have math backgrounds, and they work with Premier and develop data that tells us this is how many FTEs we should have, this is how many opportunities for additional employees we need or have, and we get an efficiency rating for that. We look at the ranges from anything from 100% to below, means that we more than likely need additional staff, or there's some additional investigation. If we go above 110%, we may be working our folks too hard, and then what that may lead to is it may lead to mistakes, because now we're looking at quality over quantity, quantity over quality. So that if we're rushing, we can't always focus on the quantity. We have to look at the quality, and I think that's something that everybody in SPD preaches now.
Yeah. So essentially, what they're doing is they're looking at finding different ways to measure how much work needs to get done, comparing that to the number of people that you've got, and then coming up with a percentage. And as you said, if it's over 100%, that essentially means people are doing more than they would have expected them to do, which, to your point, means they may be overworked. That impacts quality, but I imagine that impacts turnover as well, right?
It does. And well, I was just thinking, if somebody's logged into this podcast today to thinking that we were going to go through and teach how to use the data, I don't really think that's our objective today. What I think our objective today is to show that the data is here, and each facility, I saw the materials in the 10 management question, each facility has to develop what data is important for them, and then they have to learn how to use it. Every facility is going to be different. But one more time, Seamus, what was your question?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just saying, if you're working people too hard, you make a good point that impacts the quality, right? When people rush, they make mistakes. We all know that. But Absolutely. If you work people too hard, I imagine, and you tell me, that probably impacts turnover as well. Like, nobody wants to, be working 110% all the time. And I know that there's a lot of work to be done in SPD, and we're always short-staffed. And turnover is an issue, right?
Exactly. And you and I worked together on our data here to develop some custom stuff for us here. And we were able to show the different standards, and a correlation between the amount of trays that we were producing with the number of defects. And I'd like to hear, your take on how you were able to present that to me when we get a chance here. But, we did show, though, that when you rush, you do make more mistakes. Or if you're focusing on a narrow band of production on different trays, how the defects go up or down. But then again, if you expand your repertoire, how the defects go up and down. And, maybe that works for our system here, by being narrow-minded. Maybe we not narrow-minded, but keeping our repertoire narrow, it may help to reduce those defects. But then again, like I was talking to a new gentleman yesterday, he was his first week on the job. He was doing laparoscopic trays, and I'm like, why are you doing laparoscopic trays? You just started this week. And so I got with his trainer, and I said, what are you doing? I said, at this facility, you have to focus on your top 5 trays, and the data is right there. Their top 5 trays the top 3 are labor and delivery trays. That's how much labor and delivery they do. The next tray was a minor tray. And I said, this is your bread and butter stuff. This is what you should be teaching this new gentleman. I said, you're setting him up for failure by having him do laparoscopic trays his first week. He's going to be overwhelmed. He's going to make mistakes. And it's going to be difficult for you to find those mistakes, because now you're also busy as well, because I'm taking that trainer away from production. So obviously, in my mind, that trainer needed some coaching, or maybe we had to find a different person to train. But when I looked at the data, like I said, focus on these top 5 trays for learning. And they were the perfect trays because they were our bread and butter instruments. So those are the kinds of things, since last spring when we started working on all this together, those are the kinds of things that help us. And what we did with our statistics, and Seamus, help me with my memory here, we were able to increase our productivity. I forget the percentage, and forgive me, folks, for not having that number, but we were able to produce, I think it's 50%, Seamus. We were able to increase our productivity of number of trays produced by 50% and actually reduce our number of FTEs by about 25%. I don't remember the exact numbers, but when I brought that to administration, we were able to get, believe it or not, additional 4 FTEs. Even though I said we were able to downsize our FTEs, but what we did was we changed with so many sites. We were able to get 4 more FTEs with our float pool, so we could move those individuals around, because some of our sites are as small as having only 3 or 4 employees. I have other sites where we have 30 employees. And so what we noticed was by reducing some employees at the bigger sites, we were able to then take those employees and use them at the smaller sites and get them to float. And so it sounds, like an oxymoron to say that, but what we did, we reallocated assets, and we became more effective at using those assets. And so that worked out well for us.
Yeah.
But the data proved that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I'm going to move to the next slide here. So one of the things that you guys found was that at some sites the trays were much larger than at other sites. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then it was also important to understand everything that goes on in the department too, right? Like, and every department's different, like you said. At some places,
there's that slide I was talking about, Seamus Anderson there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. So Anderson has bigger trays than some of the other sites. Bethlehem's got bigger trays as well, but that impacts how many trays you're able to turn. When those trays are really big, it takes longer to turn them. So really important to see that. But then, also being able to see, how much of your time are you able to actually spend on those trays versus everything else? One of the things that you've always told me is that distractions are a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And being able to measure that can be really important for a couple of reasons. One, the more distractions you have, the slower you're going to go at the important stuff. Like if the phone's always ringing in the department, and you're getting called away, but that's also an opportunity for mistakes as well, right? Somebody's assembling a tray, they get called off to do something else. It's really important. When they come back, they're more likely to miss something. They'll think, oh, I already did that, or forget to do a step or something like that, right?
Exactly. So, and that's part of that problem solving thing where, we looked at our error rate. We go to the department like I did yesterday and observe, and why are you getting so many phone calls? That kind of thing. And then we actually promote reporting from the operating rooms. We want to know what the problems are, because we cannot fix them unless we know what the problems are. We have to be totally transparent with that. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I think you have
No, that's a great point. People are here to listen to you, not listen to me.
Well, you have to be humble. You really do have to be humble. We want to promote, we want to celebrate our success. But we want to be humble with our customers, the operating room, and we don't want to say the blame game. That's the worst thing you can do. And that's one problem, I think, why we have a lot of hostilities between the operating rooms and SPDs. I've seen it in the past. The ones where the operating rooms and relationships where you have collaboration, where you have an open discussion and you're fully transparent. Accountability. We broke a $6,000 robotic arm the other day, and in our department, it was hot. The employee dropped it. She knew it was hot, and we took full accountability for that. We paid for it out of our cost center, and the OR was going to pay for it, but I said no, we buy that. We bought that defect. So and they appreciated that fact, and we self-report sometimes on different things. So we have that relationship here, and but we're not going to fix the problems if we try to hide them, or if we're not transparent.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it comes back to having that data, right?
Exactly.
And like you said, you want to focus on the top problems, not every problem.
Right. So one more thought on that, I think is critical here, is okay. So we set the example, SPD, our instrument tracking system software, by being transparent, forthcoming with information. And so I think what we've done now is we've gotten buy-in from our customers to also self-report. And what we're doing now is, we're doing audits and decontamination where trays that are coming down unsprayed, point of use treatment is not completed. The OR wants to know about that. And
Yeah.
we've set the example. We're the professionals as just as much as any other department. And so, I guess they realize now, well, if SPD is doing this, why we have to be part of the solution as well. So they want to know. And if there's a mistake, they'll send that technician down to SPD. And I have to be honest with you, 9 out of 10 of them, when they come down to SPD, they're very apologetic, and they don't want to see that happen again. And they'll fix that mistake. But it's the self-reporting thing. And now that we're reporting back to the operating room on their mistakes, they're much more willing to accept those mistakes and accountability and ownership.
And that's a culture too, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the culture we have. And, I don't want to brag on my network, but we just won all kinds of safety awards. If anybody wants to look it up on the internet, St. Luke's University Health Network. We've won all kinds of safety awards recently, and it starts at the top. We have a safety VP that reports directly to the whole network president, and there's no blame, there's no shame here. If it happens, we talk about it and we fix it, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We work with a lot of different customers, and I can tell you the best customers, the folks who run the hospitals where if I'm going to be a patient, that's where I'm going to go, are the people that have that kind of culture, and that's hard to achieve. It's an intense environment, it's a stressful environment, and building that collaboration between the OR and SPD. It just makes such a huge difference, and I'm super excited to see what you guys have done there at St. Luke's. And I have to believe data is part of building that culture. Instead of operating on feelings and perception, grounding your decisions in data can help you to, be transparent with each other. Like you said, they like the data that you're providing, saying, hey, here's what we're seeing in terms of trays not being pre-sprayed, because that impacts them, right? That means it takes longer to clean all that stuff. They don't get it back when they need it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Seamus, I don't know how much time we have left here, but I've been here just over a year and a half, and with data, we've been able to get, and I say we because it's a team effort. I can't do all this myself. We've been able to create a SPD educator. We were absent of that position when I got here. A quality compliance and safety coordinator. We were able to bring on 7 SPD float positions where we pay them an additional premium hourly rate to be able to have the flexibility to float at different facilities. So we got the educator, the quality compliance and safety coordinator. I changed one of my other positions to a database network specialist person who 80% of her duty now is database maintenance, because we have to live and die by the count sheet. If we don't have a good count sheet, we're going to burn and crash. And then she works on projects as well. There's so many other things that we've been able to do with our data and metrics. And when we go over budget or we ask for additional FTEs or something like that, we have 4 contract workers here right now, and I'm able to bring. Nobody wants to have contract workers. You're talking anywhere from $75 to $100 an hour for a contract worker, and nobody wants to spend that money right now because the cost of goods and supplies has skyrocketed, salaries have skyrocketed. So when you go to an administrator and you say I need contract workers, they give you the old stink eye, and it's easier to do that when you have metrics, right?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things you have to deal with every day. And I preach this. There's the easiest way to either be shown the door or to never ever see the C-suite again is to ask for additional staffing or additional pay for your staff. We've been able to show in 18 months here that our staff needed a market adjustment. We've been able to get them 3 market adjustments in a year and a half based upon
Fantastic. That's awesome.
In my 30-some years of working SPD, I think I've only ever seen 1 fair market adjustment. But our network here is their culture here. I can go into it all day about the culture here, but they do understand the value of the employee. They understand what SPD does. The amount of respect the SPD has in our network is amazing now, because they see how sophisticated we are. It's just not the acronym, and I don't like to say this, but because I want it to go away, but SPD used to stand for the stupid people downstairs.
Right.
And I know that because I used to work in the operator. You hear different things like that. And every time I bring that up, it's kind of like it's a rebirth for that stupid name. But I have to say it anyway in a learning context here. But a lot of folks don't look at SPD like that anymore. We are very sophisticated, and we're hiring people with degrees now to lead, and the people who are leading are coming up now with skills, experience, knowledge, and a proven track record. You can come in here. I had one manager that worked for me 7 years ago. She was a line cook. She came up through as a technician, attendant, technician, coordinator, manager. Now she's a regional manager, all within 7 years because she's a fast burner. She had a destiny, and in 7 years, she's now a regional manager. So it's amazing awesome. Success rate, and she did it all herself. Good coaching too with different coaches and stuff like that. So SPD, is becoming one of those departments where we're gaining a lot of respect and acknowledgments, and it's based upon different things like this, where you have folks who want to become part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that's what this is all about. And it's all patient care. It really is about patient care.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thinking about how SPD's changed over the last several decades, it is a much more technical job. I mean, you've got robots doing surgery today, right? And running an SPD department is a more technical job. You have to be data fluent to run a large organization. To use your airport analogy, I can't even imagine trying to run an airport without some kind of system, right? You can't just say, well, we'll land the planes when they show up and just let people take off whenever. I mean, there's no way. And the same thing is true for SPD. You think about how many patients you impact all day, every day. Trying to do that without data, I mean, that would just be chaos, right?
Yeah. Let me get one more analogy if I can, Seamus. Cut me off if I'm running out of time. Back in the old days, when I was more of a boots on the ground kind of manager, 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes coming in on Saturday for a couple hours, Sundays, and I'm sure many people on this call right now are familiar with that. With the technology that's available now, and having good policies, procedures, SOPs, good leaders in place, I surrounded myself with really good leaders. I take my laptop home, and my wife says, you can work from home anytime you want and do whatever you need to do because I'm home now. I'm home after 8 hours, whereas before I would be at work for 12 hours. I'm home and work more. So, it's a different world now for me as a leader. I have the data I need. I have it available. I can see it from home on my laptop. and my family's happy because I'm home now for dinner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we got just a few minutes left. I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions if anybody has any questions. Mitchell's got a question in the channel right now. He's asking about how to get data for your materials department. You know, I think it's a good point. Mitchell, I think our contact information is going to be in here. If you'd like, I'd love to talk to you about what kind of data you're trying to gather for your materials department. But Jeff, do you gather data for materials?
No, not exactly, but I'll be honest with you. Years ago, the FDA said that all products sold in hospitals and things like that have to have a UDI, unique or UID, unique identifier, or is it UDI?
Yeah, it's
unique
a
identifier number. So it's actually said a couple different ways. So I'm human, folks. So you're talking to a human, not AI. So I hate to say so I'm hoping, and I've been working with SensorTrack on this too, and Ascot for example, I've been working with them on, all their instrumentation comes with a unique identifier number on the instrument itself. So there's got to be a way. I would say, Mitchell, work with SensorTrack and other folks in the industry to find out what they're doing. But there is a solution. I know there's got to be one, because every instrument package, every disposable, everything has a UDI number on it, and it is scannable. The problem is putting the energy in up front loading the process, developing it, and then finding out the resources. That's probably the hardest part, is finding out who the resources that can help you. And I'm sure SensorTrack can help with that, or maybe there's some other electronic company as well. But there's always a way. And when I talked to Seamus last year about AI Square, I was very fortunate and lucky to be in the beginning part of development and help mold it how I wanted to see it be built, and along with many others that were part of that group. So you may be jumping onto something good, Mitchell, now with Census. Who knows?
Yeah.
But share your ideas. It doesn't start with just one person, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It does start with one person, but it evolves with many. Is like a better way to say it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were very lucky to be able to work with you, Jeff, over the last year. It's been super helpful for us. Specifically, my job is talking to customers, learning about their problems, and finding ways to help solve those problems. So, Mitchell, everybody else in the audience, if you want to talk, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. My contact information, I think, is at the end of this slide. If it's not, we can definitely get that to you. Would love to hear about your challenges. Yes, so somebody suggests an interface with Texas would be helpful. Yeah, so there are systems like Texas out there that can help you ensure that your consumable items are ready to go for the procedures. We do have an interface, actually. That's supposed to be product agnostic here, but many of the tracking systems will have that kind of capability to share data. And so whatever tracking system you have, I think, reach out to the folks you work with and help them understand what challenges you're trying to solve. All the tracking systems obviously collect data about what goes on in your department. Using that data to solve problems is immensely helpful. So yeah, great point. All right, well, I think that's just about going to bring us to time here. Brett, I think our MC is available. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. That was really good. And I think I think people can look at data and get a little bit sticker shock, if you will, because there's a lot of numbers. There are some people that see those and it's math, right? But I think when you boil it down, and Jeffrey, you made a really good point, is that you can really recognize some of the pain points. You can identify the top 3 to 4. And then as you work through those processes, you can continue to build off of that and grow in your department and grow your department efficiencies. And, you know, like you
Good
said,
point.
no day is the same, right?
That's
And
right.
no
Exactly.
department is the same. So identifying those pain points are, you know, are really helpful when it comes to looking at data. And, you know, that was an invaluable piece of insight there. And I think overall, data empowers your team, right? You know, you have those numbers to back you up, and you have
Yeah.
those analytics to back you up. So I think that that's really, really powerful.
And celebrate your success. You got to share the data. Celebrate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we're at time, guys, and I really appreciate it. Seamus, good job with hosting on that one. And Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. It was really good.
If anybody needs anything, just reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help anyone.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
And we've got your contact information. It's right on this home screen here. So if anybody wants to reach out again, that's got email or LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to Jeffrey or Seamus. And we're about 10 minutes away from the next session. So get ready, go grab a snack, grab some coffee, grab a sandwich, whatever. We'll be right back. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yep.
Bye.